Despite being a legendary swinger and teacher whose ideas were probably 50 years ahead of their time, there was one aspect about the golf swing where Mike was just simply wrong. And right after this, I'm going to go into depth about it, and I'm going to prove it to you that he was not correct. So stay tuned. Hey, this is Steve with HitItLonger.com. I'm on a journey to hit it longer and straighter from tee to green, more distance, more accuracy, because that's what makes golf more fun, doesn't it? If you agree and you'd like to join us, please just hit the subscribe button, like this video at the end if you liked it, and leave a comment down below. And don't forget to check out my site, HitItLonger.com, where you'll get over 100 free articles that are going to help improve your golf game. So my mentor, Mike Austin, was probably best known for hitting a 515-yard drive in the 1974 National Senior Open. He was playing with 3 other players, including former PGA champion Chandler Harper, who has since corroborated the rest of his life. He's been interviewed, he's corroborated the feat. It really happened. It was an amazing drive, probably greatly wind aided and condition aided, but nevertheless with a 43.5-inch persimmon Wilson Staff driver and a steel shaft, a Titleist 100 ball, the old Bellata style ball, it was still quite an amazing accomplishment to drive a ball over a 450-yard par 4. Now, Mike was also a perennial top 10 listed teacher in all the golf publications back in the 80s and into the 90s. And while some of his ideas may have been thought to be a little bit unorthodox in terms of making a golf swing, as science is starting to catch up and we're starting to be able to measure different things about the golf swing, it's becoming clearer that Mike Austin was really onto something. But there was one thing in particular that he may have been dead wrong about. And so let's look at that today. Okay, what we're talking about and specifically relates to the theory of under, up, and out. And under would relate to the dropping of the right side under in order to be able to hit up and out into space, reach out into space. And what Mike used to say, he used to say that his club head would cross the flight line and his hands would come out almost to the flight line. And unfortunately, this has wrecked so many Mike Austin disciples, and it was echoed by Dan Schauger. And between the 4 to 10 pivot idea and this idea of the club head crossing the flight line and the handle going almost out to the flight line, this has wrecked more Mike Austin disciples than just about anything else. Now, most of those who played personally with Mike would attest to that Mike hit the ball pretty darn straight. He didn't play a big curve unless he had to strategically, but if he was just swinging, he hit the ball just straight. So I've got my favorite hula hoop here to illustrate how hitting the ball straight cannot involve the way Mike was describing it. I'm going to set this to where the low point of the hula hoop is about 5 inches or 6 inches behind the ball. So right where the ball is located here, it's on the up strike, or the hula hoop is starting to go back upwards again. Now, I'm going to lay this down for a greater effect. Now you can see the part of the hula hoop that matches the level of the ball is curving back around to the left again. Now I'm going to fix that. That would be an outside-in path. Even though my swing plane is straight, we have to account for the angle of attack when it comes to calculating path. And right here, my path would be outside to in. So I'm going to turn the hula hoop several degrees to the right. Now you can see my swing plane, which is measured at the bottom of the arc, is pointing to the right. But at the moment of impact, yes, my club head is traveling upwards, as you can see by the hoop here, but the hula hoop is pointing right down the middle of the fairway. So here, if I were to hit the ball like this, I would strike the ball with, let's say, 5 or 6 degrees of upwards angle of attack, but the path here would be 0. So this would be a straight path. If I could pair it up with the straight club face, I'd have a dead straight shot down the middle. Notice here, if you continue following the hoop into the follow-through, that the hoop never does cross the flight line. So if we lay down a alignment rod, and let's just make sure I've got it as straight as I can get it. And here we are at that same setup again. You can see clearly, even though my swing plane is quite substantially off to the right, as the club turns upwards, it strikes the ball square with the club head moving at the target, but then the hoop goes upwards and circles back around to the left again. It never does cross the flight line. The only way that you could truly make the club head cross the flight line is if I was swinging off of straight or my club path was significantly inside to out. Then for a brief moment just after impact, my club head would be outside the flight line, but then again quickly circle back up and around to the left. That's the natural arc, the way the club head is moving. Now, as far as the hands are going, Mike said that his hands almost reached the flight line. Let's see what we would have to do that. That would have to look like this. Like that. And boy, if I hit this thing like this, I'm going to slice this so far out of bounds that it might circle the earth and come back in from the left side. It might go so far right. So if I were to thrust the handle and try to keep it thrusting out towards the flight line, number one, my speed will be curtailed. Number two, my path will be much too far inside out to hit a straight ball. The only chance I would have of hitting the fairway is learning how to flip the heck out of the face, and I would hit an enormous, enormous push hook that might find the fairway 1 out of 3, 4, 5 times. But 3 times I'll be out of bounds to the right, and 1 time I'll be out of bounds to the left. Just watch Mike do it himself up here in the corner of the screen. This is footage from about 1960, somewhere around there, Annandale Country Club in Southern California. You can see quite clearly from multiple angles that Mike's hands and handle do nothing of the sort. In fact, his handle arcs this way and then back around to the left again after impact. It never goes out towards the flight line at all. Once he gets to about this point, this club is moving away from the flight line in a curve, first to be parallel with it, and then pulling back around to the left. That hand path is the most effective way to do things, certainly massively better than trying to throw the handle at the flight line. You will never be a good golfer throwing the handle at the flight line and getting your club head to cross the flight line. It just will not happen. So now that begs the question, how could Mike Austin be so wrong about this? Well, I think it goes to perception of the way he felt like he was swinging. Just like Ben Hogan in his book, 5 Lessons, and especially the illustrations in that book of the raised wrist and some of the other things, just were not true. If you compare video of Hogan swinging to some of the illustrations, you see that that's not what's happening. Hogan might have been posing for the illustrator, or he may have been describing what he was doing to the illustrator, but it doesn't quite match up to what Hogan was actually doing when he swung the club. Mike Austin might be guilty simply of this, to where he felt like that's what he was doing. Maybe he did not have access, ready access to video on an everyday basis like we do with our smartphones. It's so easy to take a video of our swings these days. So if you're studying and you're trying to emulate the Mike Austin swing, I highly recommend that you follow these instructions I put forth in this video in terms of how the club and the hand should move. Watch Mike Austin swing, not necessarily listen to him or any of his surrogates talk about what they're doing, because sometimes it comes down to how they perceive it. Hey, again, thanks so much for watching. Thanks to Golf Development Complex in Moorpark, California. And hey, if I don't see you in the next video, I hope I see you longer and straighter down the fairway. Take good care.